जाती है।
जी।
इसलिए बाहर की इन्विटेशन कोई एक्सेप्ट नहीं करता मैं आने जाने। ऑनलाइन तो सब चलता रहता है। क्या
हाँ, वो ऑनलाइन का यही तो फायदा है
फायदा?
कि
अब
आप
सभी लोग,
जी
मिनिस्ट्री की भी सारी मीटिंगें चलती रहती है ऑनलाइन,
जी जी।
अपने इंस्टीट्यूट्स की भी चलती रहती हैं,
हम्म।
बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम चलते रहते हैं। दे कीप यू मोर बिजी देन दैट।
ये तो आप तो हमेशा ही बिजी रहते हैं जो भी स्थितियां हो। जी
हम लोग वर्क है, एल्कोहलिक है,
जी जी जी।
चुप बैठ ही नहीं सकते।
हाँ वो तो है, ये तो है।
ये प्रॉब्लम चलते रहता है कुछ ना कुछ।
जी। आपको अपना नाम रीनेम करना होगा। आपका नाम देवेश किशोर
देवेश सर के नाम से। I'll do that, sir.
हाँ जी। Welcome everybody to this session of Global Communication Education Conclave. Step by step, we have finally entered day 62 of this conclave. This conclave has been initiated by Global Media Education Council, GMEC, which is the first homegrown global council of media educators, researchers, professionals, and policymakers. The idea of setting up GMEC was mooted by Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary in 2021. And then like-minded people joined hands with Professor KG Suresh as president and Dr. US Pandey as vice president. Today, GMEC family has grown to more than 60 members. As vice president of GMEC, I have been part of this academic endeavor since the time this idea was mooted. I find myself lucky to be part of this galaxy of media educators in this forum. Global Communication Education Conclave, GCEC, is the first step of GMEC. Many more academic and professional endeavors will follow. In GCEC, we have reserved evenings for academic deliberations and enriching discourse with a global perspective. And all our sessions till date have been trendsetters. We have planned 75 sessions of GCEC coinciding with the 75 years of India's independence, and we have already achieved more than 80% of our target. In today's session, many distinguished scholars and professionals are with us. I welcome them all in this session. I feel happy to share the company of my dear friend, Dr. Dilip Kumar, who is Associate Professor in IMC Northern Regional Campus at Jammu, and also the chair of this session. Professor Harsh Dobhal, former head School of Arts, Design and Media Studies at Sharda University and currently visiting professor in Doon University, Dehradun, is also with us as chief guest of this session. This session is also being graced by Professor Devesh Kishore, who is a professor emeritus and former director and professor IGNOU and IIMC. He is the senior most media educator in the country, and we feel proud to acknowledge his contribution and confer on him the Lifetime Achievement Award. The keynote address will be delivered by Dr. Deshpant Okocha, Senior Lecturer and Coordinator of Postgraduate Programs, Department of Mass Communication, Bingham University, Nigeria. In today's session, Mr. Prabhakar Kumar, Head CMS Media Lab, has also joined us as a corporate speaker. I welcome all my distinguished colleagues in this GCEC session. And my special assignment in this session is to introduce the moderator of the day, Dr. Mukta Martolia. Dr. Mukta is a doctorate in mass communication from Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Communication, Bhopal. With nearly a decade of experience in academics and industry, her expertise lies in intercultural communication and cultural studies. Presently, she is assistant professor and academic coordinator at the School of Media, Film and Entertainment in Sharda University, recipient of the Best Media Educator of the Year during the 15th Media Excellence Award from the Media Federation of India. Dr. Mukta is a strong advocate of quality research, and more than a dozen of his students have done their undergraduate and postgraduate dissertations under her guidance. Dr. Mukta has published her research work in areas including intercultural communication, cultural studies, new media, traditional media, community radio, research traditions, and health communication. So I hand over the rein now to Dr. Mukta Martolia.
Thank you, Professor Amrish Saxena, for the introduction and invitation. I am Dr. Mukta Martolia, moderator of today's session, and I feel delighted to be a part of this world's longest running media education event, Global Communication Education Conclave, GCEC, Today, on behalf of the Global Media Education Council, I would like to extend my heartfelt greetings to all the virtual participants who are connected with us via Zoom or through our YouTube channel on this 62nd day of the Global Communication Education Conclave. The theme of today's webinar is Media Education in the Contemporary Era. And for the discussion today, in our panel, we have some eminent personalities from academia and industry. Before I invite our session chair of the day, I would like to draw your attention towards today's theme, that is media education in the contemporary era. Recently, we celebrated 100 years of media education in India. And in this journey of 100 years of media education in India, it has achieved many milestones and many more yet to be achieved. Media education is a skill-based domain. And like any other skill-based program, the understanding of the latest media technology, the proper skills and competency is expected from the media students. The academia has been playing a tremendous role in providing such competency to our students, but there is a gap between media industry and academia that has always been a topic of discussion and criticism. Many fruitful attempts at various levels have been made in the past few years to fill the gap. One of such attempts is our theme today. I hope today's session will be a fruitful session in terms of more ideas and requirements to bridge the gap between media industry and media education. So to start the session, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our session chair of the evening today, Dr. Dilip Kumar. Dr. Dilip Kumar is currently associated with India's leading mass communication institution under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India, Indian Institute of Mass Communication, IIMC, Northern Regional Center, Jammu. Dr. Dilip Kumar is founder, HOD, and professor at Journalism and Mass Communication, Management Education and Research Institute. He has done his postdoctoral studies sponsored by ICSSR. Dr. Dilip is doctorate in journalism, mass communication, and political science with a rich experience in the field of media laws and ethics, media research, and issues of international relationships. Dr. Dilip has participated in around 125 national and international conferences as keynote speaker, resource person, and moderators. Dr. Dilip has organized more than 200 seminars, conferences, webinars as convener. Author of around 36 books, Dr. Dilip Kumar is a published writer of 17 chapters, 5 proceedings, and 37 research articles. Dr. Dilip has also written more than 1,000 articles in national newspapers and magazines. With the huge experience in academia, Dr. Dilip is with us today as session chair. I would now request Dr. Dilip Kumar to kindly take over the platform to preside the session with his opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Dilip.
Thank you, Dr. Mukta. Thank you, even my respected friend, come my mentor, Professor Amrish Saxena. And thank you, GMEC, who gives me such a wonderful platform to even explore myself as a session chair. I also want to thank Professor K.G. Suresh, who is actual mentor of my entire journey of academia. So as today's topic is, as we know, that the modern world cannot be even imagined without media products and services. We use media in everyday life, in communication, in social and economic life, and in the education space. The educational space and the role of the education of any level have changed significantly and is changing at the present moment. Technologies and training are very much important in this era. So without even taking much more time, as we know, time is very precious. we can say media education is multidisciplinary and global direction in modern pedagogy. The development of this direction is the educational space is influenced by many global factors, including digital technologies, convergence in media, etc. So now I invite for the further even proceedings or for further even paper presenter or whatever the entire schedule is. I have a little bit idea which one sent by the Dr. Mukta. So I am ready to even chair the session. So thank you very much to give me such a platform, and I hope the entire session will be very much fruitful for the audience. So I also even want to thank who even directly or indirectly associated with this entire event, you can say the virtual event. And this is the work which one we very much required for the time in particular those scenario when we as a country celebrating the 75 years of independence. Amrit Mahotsav kind of name we are just celebrating in this slide. So yes, I hope the entire journey and entire session will be very much fruitful for all those people who directly or indirectly associated with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dilip. Moving further, I take this opportunity to introduce and invite our chief guest of the evening, Professor Dr. Harsh Dobhal. Professor Dobhal has been studying, conducting, and supervising field-based research, writing, teaching, publishing on, and pursuing field experience in media, security, conflict, and peace, human rights and developmental issues, international and national, over 20 years. Dr. Harsh has 8 books to his credit. Dr. Dobhal obtained his master's, MPhil, and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, between 1990 to 1999. Professor Dobhal was a visiting research scholar at Rothberg International School, Jerusalem, and later a postdoctoral fellow with the Political Science Department of Hebrew University of Jerusalem between 1999 to 2003. Professor Harsh has written extensively on West Asian affairs, globalization, environmental and human rights issue for national and international media and journals. Professor Harsh worked as a journalist in India for PTI from 1995 to 1999, and later as PTI's West Asia correspondent based in Jerusalem and Gaza, from where he also contributed to major Indian dailies, TV channels, and BBC for over 5 years. He has been editor of Combat Law, a human rights and law bi-monthly journal published in Hindi and English simultaneously. He has made several seminars and paper presentations on media, rights, environment, Indian polity and society at universities of other institutes in India and abroad, including the United States, United Kingdom, Denmark, Netherlands, Poland, Ireland, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Maldives, Israel, Palestine, Egypt, Thailand, South Korea, and many more. Professor Harsh is currently working as visiting professor at the School of Media and Communication Studies, Doon University. Prior to this, he was heading the Department of Mass Communication, Sharda University, Greater Noida. I would now invite Professor Harsh Dobhal for his address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mukta. Am I audible enough with this mic?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that very, very generous introduction. It is indeed a great pleasure and honor to be in the company of stalwarts like Professor Devesh Kishore, sir. It's really a pleasure to be sharing a platform with you. Dr. Desmond Okucha, Mr. Prabhakar Kumar, Dr. Ambrish Saxena, Dr. Dilip Kumar, we just heard, and Dr. Mukta Martolia, who I had an opportunity to be a colleague of. So thank you very much for this, for giving me this this honor and this opportunity to come and sort of be the chief guest. I don't feel so senior though to be a chief guest, but thank you very much. Thank you. The topic is really very broad in the sense that media education in the contemporary era can be a huge topic. As introduced by Dr. Mukta, I began my career as a journalist with PTI with actually Professor KG Suresh, we are batchmates, who has been a dear friend for a couple of decades now. And later, of course, like him, I also shifted to academic field. Last about 10 years, over 10 years, I'm in academics full time. I'll start, time is very less, so I'll just touch upon a few of the key concerns that I, as a combination of the two, having an academic background from JNU and abroad and having worked as a professional journalist, the concerns that come to my mind. People like us, we had to get into media after a very rigorous training. I had a 1-year training in media house in PTI, which trained us how to write news, how to look at news, how to study news, what is objectivity, how to verify news, etc., etc. And then I was in my hometown, which is Tehri, New Tehri town. Near that town, I just saw an incident whereby one guy who was just having a mobile phone, and he called himself a journalist, and he was chasing somebody, some official, and the official got scared. In this during the times that we live in, where you have all kind of blackmailers also, and all kind of extortions taking place in the name of journalism. So this fellow ran and he fell down the road and he met with an accident. So it was a sad story. Then I went through the story of that gentleman who was claiming to be a journalist, and I found that he said, when police caught him, that he was a YouTube journalist. You know about the story of one of the journalists in Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh 2-3 days back, where this journalist went and started, intimidating some teachers in the name of journalism with all kind of questions, as if journalists have all the powers to question and investigate anyone, anywhere, in any form, at any point of time. So why I'm bringing up these points, and of course there is this concept of citizen journalism these days. Why I'm bringing up this point is that we are going through times where on the one hand you have hundreds and thousands of institutes, professional institutes, or rather in the name of professional institutes, all kind of these institutions or these small bodies coming up and claiming to be getting, of course, recognition from some government bodies and claiming to be imparting media education, and this is what they produce. All these guys that are calling themselves a journalist is what they produce. So that brings us to another question, that when hundreds and thousands of media institutes across the country, maybe globally, but we are talking in Indian context, are churning out so many of media students. What are they up to? Are they actually coming out with adequate education which is required, or are they simply maybe a little bit of technically or technologically trained, which even a computer science guy or a science student can be? So that's a question, and that's a concern that I very often wonder about, that we are producing too many people who are claiming to be media professionals, while actually our media, we as teachers or as media educators should actually articulate this question. Is there a body at national level which regulates and which actually looks at this issue of who is actually a journalist and who is not, and who passes off as a media professional? Then my next point, which is related, is that there is a lot of confusion. Media education, as I said, is a huge and broad term. I have been, heading departments and schools here and there, and one of the questions that comes to my mind, we studied in JNU and we had a rigorous graduation and post-graduation course. Nowadays, students immediately after intermediate, they come and they do PGMC or whatever, bachelor's in media education, journalism, mass communication, whatever. So there is a lot of hodgepodge here. There is a lot of mixing, whether we are teaching journalism skills, radio, print, TV, social media, or we are teaching media studies, communication studies, journalism studies. Are we providing a conceptual framework, enough theoretical background? Are we doing media academics or are we doing media profession? So, and this is where Dr. Mukta also pointed to. There is a huge gap between the two, and this gap seems to be also emerging in the content of the syllabi all across. So we'll have a syllabi where we'll have media and society, one course, we'll have Indian polity and society, we just touch upon here and there. So the student is not adequately prepared, as a professional, apart from, and we may impart some skills, but having that background, which somebody else was also telling the other day. So you have this situation where if a guy is reporting about, something between India and Pakistan, has no understanding of the partition, or no understanding of what is happening in Russia and Ukraine today. Just read the newspaper and, there is no study of the news. There is no understanding of the basic perspective, basic information, basic knowledge behind the news story. This is because we as media professionals have been producing a hodgepodge kind of a professional, and I think this area needs due attention. And this is why we have this problem of what Dr. Mukta pointed out, this disconnect between media industry and media professionals. We as teachers, we do a course, many years back we did something, we don't go to industry. Industry people also do not, conduct themselves after referring to adequate research. So there is this lack of coordination, combination, collaboration between media profession and media academics, the academic side of it. I think that needs to be filled, and I'm sure with a body like this, we will look at this. Second point I'd like to highlight here is that many of my students go out and they do internship and come back, and because of this hodgepodge nature of the curricula, and because of the lack of clarity of the within the discipline, they don't acquire knowledge skills. They're not grounded in political science. They don't understand constitution. They have very little understanding of international affairs. Everybody wants to be an anchor. You ask a BA student who is doing media studies or media education, whatever, what do you want to become? Anchor. 90% of them want to be anchor. None of them have actually looked at a BBC anchor who sometimes is of Professor Kishore's age, having covered maybe 30 wars. But today you will have a 21-year-old girl having passed out from a... So they have become the role model. They have become the aspirational model and role model for most of the students. So that was my another point, that we need to strike a balance, a kind of a combination between education, professional training, and research. Research is also missing greatly. Even media industry may be conducting their own research, market-oriented research, but media research is missing. We either have a profession, or we have these kind of courses that we run, and we call ourselves media professors, media professionals, whatever, or we have research happening independently. So I think media content, media academics needs to be looked at with a new sense of requirement. And my third concern is that all of us know about media functions. We've been teaching, but we know that from the days of Professor Devesh Kishore, and even from my days, I don't look very old, but I'm quite I'm 50 plus. But we learned our basic. We learned our typing on Remington typewriter. So we belong to that era when we used to work very hard. I remember I was covering Chamoli earthquake, and I went there as a PTI reporter with a photographer. So that was the time when we would stand outside in a queue in a post office, handwrite a story for 5 pages, cut one page goes wasted, have another page, then wait for your turn to fax it to PTI Delhi, and then their photographs. So we have to catch hold of a roadway wala next morning. He goes to Dehradun one day, he takes there. He gives it to another roadway wala that takes the film reel to Delhi, and then PTI collects from Delhi, and then the photograph is in print next day. So it would take 2 to 3 days for a photograph to basically emerge from a source and come out in the public 2 to 3 days, to a time when all of us know that click of a button and we have everything. Mobile phone is everything. So maybe our new age students are not that are not that professionally trained, and they do not think the need of that rigorous training. And that is why we have moved from an era of journalism, which is based on verification, facts, hard work, running around, doing a story, to journalism, which is being done under market pressure, where breaking news is the trend, and where now of late, siding with the political parties is another trend that we see. And all this started way back in the West. We know Rupert Murdoch, and we call it Murdochization. I mean, I don't call it, other people have called it Murdochization of media, of Indian media, where there are 2-3 principles. One is that you lose autonomy of editorials. Second is that editorial is totally taken over by management. You have predatory pricing, and third is that you make deals with political establishment. And once you make deals with political establishment, then you do whatever you do in the media. It is guided by a deep sense of profit making, rather than guided by and understood by or grounded in our understanding of what are the main functions of media. Because media cannot be like any other mining or cement or any other industry. Media has much more impact on society. So I think as media professionals, this should be part of media education, that we teach our students this distinction, and we tell them that also in this era of corporatization, we must be aware that is media education all about teaching the story of commercial success, or their ethics, there are functions. There is a responsibility towards society. If a TV channel or the newspaper is giving a report, it has huge impact. We are still not West. We are still a society where people are impacted by the trends of Doordarshan days, where they believe everything that comes in newspaper or that they see on television or hear on radio. So I think another important point as media educators, we must keep in mind that while teaching business journalism, while teaching corporate communication, while dealing with the phenomenon, which is undeniable, we can't escape it, we must also remember that as media educators, we have a duty to teach our students that while commercial success is a must, but media is not only about commercial success, and media is much more that. Media is about agriculture beat, media is about farmers committing suicide, media is about health beat. These beats have become non-fashionable now. Agriculture is no more in fashion. Environment is no more in fashion. Rural beat is no more in fashion. Where you have the huge population of the country that is residing, and as a forum for public interest, as forum reflecting public interest, as forum working as a watchdog to create the concern for public interest, and to catch the people and the powers that be, to force them to keep public interest in mind through media. We should also guide and motivate our students and this whole media education phenomenon in that direction. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Mukta.
Thank you, Professor Harsh. Over to you, Amrit sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mukta. So now the time has arrived. In this session, wherein we are proceeding towards acknowledging the contribution of Professor Devesh Kishore. Devesh Kishore is a name which everybody is knowing about him, because he has been in media education when many of us were not born. He has 50 years, I would say more than 50 years of career to his credit, and he has worked in all the great institutions of this country, right from Indian Institute of Mass Communication to Electronic Media Production Center, IGNU. And he has been working in different capacities as professor, as director, and all. And he is not merely in media education, but he is a known researcher. And he has made a mark wherever he has been working, and he has been a guiding force for hundreds of media educators in this country. And it's a matter of pride that today we have Professor Devesh Kishore with us. And we will be bestowing this Lifetime Achievement Award on him. And I will request the technical team to please play the video conferring the Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah, over to you, Dr. Mukta.
Thank you, Professor Ambarish. Now I would request Professor Devesh Kishore sir for his address.
Let me at the outset thank the Global Communication Education Conclave and the Council for inviting me to such an interesting program, which I find is full of lot of information for the communicators and the students. Well, this I also find a program which has the longest running event. I have not seen in my career a program like this. I started teaching since 1964. Almost 6 decades are over. And these 6 decades, I have an opportunity of seeing closely the journey of academia in the field of communication and journalism. When I became the student in 1962, there was no curriculum. It was all a copy of a curriculum of an American university. It has nothing to do with the Indian system of journalism and communication. We started from that curriculum and we learned, of course, a lot of things from the Western countries about communication. We didn't have much things related to the communication, Indian communication situation. So the first job in 1964 when I became a lecturer was to develop a curriculum which will suit to the needs of Indian journalism and communication personnel. Well, I started a career from there, and I thank Professor Ambarish has already given away my introduction in detail. And from there, I moved to different organizations like IMC, IGNO, NARM, and in Western in America, a number of universities I taught the journalism and mass communication. Now I think when we come to the topic related to contemporary era of mass media, I think there is an urgent need of the curriculum has undergone a great change in relation to the present need of the journalists and communication personnel. First thing I find that the important thing which has to be taken care of is related to the new media which has come on a greater speed and also providing a lot of interesting stories to the people. let our student learn how to prepare a story from the data. A data journalism, I find, is becoming very important these days because data speaks for itself. Our present curriculum, which are available, we find data journalism is missing in most of the curriculum of the universities and institutions. I think we should train our young budding journalists how to make a story from the data, how to analyze the data, put them in a sequence, and then come out with a story which is based on facts, maybe based on the trend of the data, the events happening. All that care has to be taken. Second thing, I find that computer-assisted reporting has become very important these days, which is missing from the curriculum. How to use computers and assist a reporter to report a story or to develop a story. What are the tools? How they can be used? Now the time has come when our students should be well versed with the computer-assisted reporting stories methodology. Third thing which I have been observing is the citizen journalism. Now all of us have been observing that how important it is. The people who have no journalism, who have no training in journalism, in communication, have been reporting these stories. Now, can we train them directly or indirectly how to make this story interesting, useful, meaningful, and full of these pictures which will make the story to speak itself? So I think the third area, which is also very important, our teachers should look into it, is how can we train our people in citizen journalism? And third thing which I find is the important thing is the format of presentation. Now we have so many media available to us, whether you talk of radio, whether you talk of television, whether you talk of print media, whether you talk of social media. Now all media require a different type presentation of this story. One mode of presentation will not work on one media. You have to rewrite this story or you have to redevelop this story. I've been observing that this area is also very important for providing the training to the students. And in each media also, let's take the broadcasting. Now you have podcasting, you have several modes of presentation, you have web radio. Now how should you, or how a student should write a script suiting to that mode of presentation? That becomes another important thing. Mind it, please, these things were not there when I was a student or when I started teaching. These are all latest development because of the technological development in the media. Earlier, in my days, in 1964, we didn't have transistors, we didn't have the mobile phones, and therefore we were untouched by all these types of journalistic approaches. But nowadays, because of the development of technology, everyday technology is developing, which is becoming very important. Like in social media, different modes are becoming very important. I have closely been observing many journalists are taking down stories from the Twitter or from the other modes of the social media. Now, what is this? This means that the journalist should be trained enough how to take out a story which is realistic, useful, meaningful from already presented these stories on social media. Now that requires a training for our own people. There are several other areas which has been already focused. I would not like to mention very much. Research is the most important aspect of the development of any organization or any discipline. If the research is weak, then you will not be able to take your whatever techniques, methodology, or you will not be able to do anything which will make impact on the society. For example, can we predict on the basis of the data what is going to happen after 10 years, 15 years? We have all the data growth available, trend of data is available. Only thing is somebody should know how to analyze this data, put into a form, and make a good story. So research techniques are very important. Very much. I think these are some of the important points which have to be taken care of by our learned faculty members, and I would personally request, because I am now not very active in teaching or in research, but my experience is that let us take the contemporary era into mind and see what is in need, and then try to develop those skills into our students by changing curriculum, modifying curriculum, or even training our own. Let me thank you all once again for providing me an opportunity to be present and expressing my views. Thank you very much. Over to Mukta.
I think there is some problem at her end. So we should proceed further. And then I will request Dr. Desmond, if he is there in the session, to please, Dr. Desmond Okacha. He is our keynote speaker. So I'll request him to please take over and make his address.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be part of this very scholarly and industry-grounded event. And I want to say that India, I've always said, it's my second home, because the journalism profession takes a lot of its blood and oxygen from India. But I want to speak about media education as it applies to the African continent. And as we look at education, many times we tend to pigeonhole or micromanage our understanding of the media in Africa when we look at the media from a Western lens, or we look at the media from an Asian lens, and that becomes problematic. So for us to comprehend and understand the African media landscape, there are 8 variables that is key. And for those studying the African media landscape, Nigeria in particular, and for Africans themselves that want to excel and succeed within the field, sometimes they get lost themselves because they use the external benchmarks to examine the industry. But what are those variables that have characterized the African media industry? Number 1 is a political system and structure. many times, if you stay from outside the shores of Africa, you will hear that an African country is democratic. You will hear that Rwanda is democratic, Ghana is democratic, Nigeria is democratic, Senegal is democratic. But those are all facades. They're all illusionary, because these countries are democratic constitutionally, but in practice and structure, they are not. So this makes it difficult for the practicing journalists or those in academia to really execute, practice, or theorize when they bring views from non-African nations. So it's important for the academics, the practitioners, the students to really take time and study and understand the peculiarities of the political systems and structures in Africa. And I've come to this conclusion from my little experience that many of the political office holders in Africa, Nigeria in particular, were once students of history, or were once agitators and crusaders for the emancipation and independence of the continent. And they saw the power and the efficacy and the potency of the media. But with time, there was a transition in their base as agitators and crusaders and advocates, and they became power brokers themselves. So for that reason, they tried as much as possible. They might be giving lip service to the independence and the freedom of the press, but in practice, they enshrine tactics and laws and edits and verdicts and decrees. Media. So that's a point that we need to understand, and it's something we encourage our young ones. Number two is failure of professional journalism. In Nigeria in particular, many of the media houses are owned by politicians. For this reason, the editorial policy, the news coverage, the news framing are all controlled subtly, overtly, or covertly by the media owners. Therefore, it becomes important for us as professionals to go beyond the veil of the institution or the company called the media, to look at those who are the owners of the media, as they play key roles in determining the operation of the media. Number two, we need to study African media is the encroachment of citizen journalism. And this has become some kind of discouragement for professional journalists or would-be professionals or those in journalism schools and universities. Because now with your smartphone, with your internet-enabled device, you can actually go online and you can broadcast and you can give yourself the tag of a journalist. So in Africa, it becomes difficult even for us to say, who is a journalist? And that is something that the debate has been on to define who a journalist is. So in looking at journalism education, there is a need for us to bring the debate to a conclusion of defining who a journalist is. Another point that is vital in this discourse is the issue of digital authoritarianism. If you stay in India, because I've been able to walk around India and I've gone a lot of places in India, and you'll see India, despite your pockets of problems, is very much democratic when compared to the whole of the African continent. Our political actors and leaders do not intend, and they say it and they act it, for the citizens to have hope of the media. So our degree of digital citizenship and digital rights isn't as much as that which is obtainable in other developing or developed countries of the world. And we've seen that our leaders, they tend to lean or partner with countries that be dictatorial, like Russia, China, Iraq, Morocco, Libya, Tunisia, and other dictatorial regimes. And what do they learn in this fraternity? they learn how to gauge the media, and that becomes problematic for us also. Another issue is the disruptive linguistic element. Nigeria is an ex-British colony, and the standard English in our country is a British English, or we call the Queen's English. But with the emergence of the digital media, and in Nigeria, there are three things that bring us together as one people. Entertainment, which is broadly music and movie, politics, and then sports. The languages that have characterized the media space have actually been instigated and engineered and baited from this platform, and it's affecting how we communicate in the country. Another point that is of importance in this discussion is the issue of cybersecurity and media ethics. The media is supposed to provide some cushion for free speech, also for media entrepreneurship. But the rate of poverty in Nigeria is massive. It's in 100 million plus. Therefore, many young folks tend to see the media as an avenue to solve or sort out their poverty. And this has brought about the issues of cybersecurity breaches and ethical breaches. Other times, there are just deliberate breaches of hate speech and all that. And sometime last year, our government wanted to bring what we call the hate speech bill, also the social media bill. Though that failed because we saw that the government wanted to take advantage of the problem to their own benefit of gauging the media. Then there's something for us in academia, the professor and the lecturer, that we need to be very conscious of, and that is the skilled media research. Most of the researches done within the terrains of the media in Africa are within the tent of descriptive research. So there is need for us as researchers to go beyond that and look at issues on inferential statistics, multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research. That's important to help us understand
It seems Dr. Deshmukh is facing some internet issues. And since I was also facing certain connectivity issues, so I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Deshmukh till the moment he joins us back. Dr. Deshmukh Okocha is a senior lecturer and coordinator.
Hey.
Dr. Deshmukh, am I audible to you, Dr. Deshmukh?
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Deshmukh.
Nigerian system has caught this guy. Hey.
Yes, it seems certain network issue, Dr. Deshmukh. We can't see you. So you're a little audible. Okay, so let me take this opportunity to introduce a bit about Dr. Deshmukh. He is senior lecturer and coordinator of postgraduate program at the Department of Mass Communication, Bingham University, Nigeria. Dr. Deshmukh Okocha is a social scientist with specialization in digital media, communication, knowledge management, development communication, and journalism. He has about 15 years of experience in consulting, research, and lecturing. Dr. Deshmukh holds a BA degree in management from the United Kingdom and MA and PhD in journalism and mass communication from India. Besides working in consulting for World Bank, Global Fund for Women and Open Society Initiative for West Africa funded projects, he was the pioneer National Knowledge Management and Communication Coordinator for the International Fund for Agriculture Development. Presently, Dr. Desmond is a senior lecturer at the Department of Mass Communication, Bingham University, Nigeria, as well as a visiting associate professor of journalism and mass communication at Indus International University, Himachal Pradesh, India. He is the founder and chairman of Institute for Leadership and Development Communication, Nigeria. As an international voice, Dr. Okacha is a frequent speaker and chair in conferences across continents. In 2018, he was invited to speak at Harvard University, USA, Vienna University, Australia, and at the MIRDEC 8th International Academic Conference on Social Sciences. On behalf of Global Media Education Council, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce, and now I thank you to Dr. Deshman. Dr. Deshman, it seems some connectivity issue, as I can see multiple login IDs of Dr. Deshman. So without a delay, Amrit sir, if you allow me, can we proceed?
I think we should proceed.
Thank you so much. Okay, I was overwhelmed today and I felt honored to share the platform with Professor Devesh Kishorji, as I am also very fortunate that I started my teaching career in 2009 under his leadership and have learned a lot from you, sir. Thank you so much for all your contribution and blessings to us. Thank you, sir. So now moving further, I virtually invite our chief guest of the evening, Professor Harsh Dobal, for the book release. I request the technical team. The title of the book is Higher Education Institutions and Community Engagement, and it has been edited by Professor Ritu Sanjeev Sood and myself. The book is one of its kind, and the best part about the book is that it is majorly written by the students of undergraduate and postgraduate level, and it is based on the studies they conducted under the supervision of their faculties in their nearby community.
Thank you very much, and great. Congratulations, Dr. Mukta, and your co-author of the book. Looking forward to read it, and maybe some of us should review this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir.
Great initiative. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
This is the book.
That's the cover page. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, technical team.
Okay, congratulations, Dr. Mukta.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving further, now I would like to invite our corporate speaker of the event, Mr. Prabhakar Kumar. Mr. Kumar is the head of CMS Media Lab. He has led the, Mr. Prabhakar has 2 decades of experience in media production, research and training. He has led the research projects on primetime television news programs for 1,000 hours. He is a member of the Security Scrutiny Committee on Violations of Electronic Media Monitoring Center, EMMC, under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting since 2008. His area of research includes analysis of different domains of Indian media and its quality on themes related to environment, corruption, election, health, gender, education, politics, policy, technology, religion, and philosophy. His area of expertise includes content strategy, media analysis for print, broadcast, and online media, media production, and training. He has developed innovative tools and checklists to measure the rate, gender sensitiveness of TV program, content credibility of TV news, sexualization of media content, etc. He has managed multiple media fellowships, engagement and research programs for partners like WHO, UNICEF, UNESCO, DST, BEEP, etc. Mr. Prabhakar has led the team providing consultancy to TV news channels on content planning, quality, structure, and strategy. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. I now request you to kindly address the virtual gathering. Over to you, Mr. Prabhakar.
Thank you, Dr. Mukta, for inviting, and thank you, Professor Ambesh Saxena and other dignitaries, especially your team, and also Professor Devesh Kishore, definitely is a stalwart in Indian media education. Thank you, sir. And just one correction, we did more than 1 lakh hour of content analysis of television channels. And I will start from that point because I think we are discussing mostly about news media. And if we talk about the news media and how news media education can be improved, I think that discussion would be more fruitful.
If I can, I'm allowed to interrupt. May I request Mr. Prabhakar to please switch on your video, unless otherwise the recording will not be possible of your lecture.
Oh, there is a, sorry, Mr. Saxena, there is a distraction behind and there is a problem of network. So I'm moving on. There will be no video, there will be problem of light. So that's why I'm not using my video.
Okay, fine. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So starting from news media, we did a lot of research on television, news channels, radio, and print news media. The output of these new media reflect the output of media and media education also. And we, in last 20 years, whenever we discussed about these outputs, news media houses and news media institutions, those who are training journalists, they were not very interested in these research findings. One of the interesting finding is that news media is roughly focusing 5% on developmental issues, and the rest of the issues are interesting, but they are peripheral issues. How these kind of findings are important? These kind of findings are important because they reflect the reality of Indian media and the training. This is also the problem of the ecosystem of Indian media. For that, no media education can do anything because it cannot change the ecosystem of Indian media. The problem is that unless until we realize what is the requirement of Indian media and society, we would not be able to address the quality issue of Indian media education. To address the quality issue of Indian media education, we need to understand how we can bring the quality in mass communication institutions. And for that, we did the research in 2014, and we found that most of the trainers in those institutions were not the practicing journalists. And this is one of the major problem. This is one of the major problem of gap between Indian media education and Indian media industry. And if it is not addressed, the gap, if we are not addressing the gap, then there will be a problem and we cannot solve this problem. For solving this problem, we need to understand that how Indian media education can be improved. In that sense, we need to understand, we need to observe the reality of Indian media education. And without right observation, we cannot improve the Indian media education. In that sense, we need to understand the kind of practice and the kind of training we are providing to trainers and trainees, both. Unless until we examine and do some solid research into that, we would not be able to improve the Indian media education. So there are 4 or 5 points I want to highlight in this regard. First thing is that there is a lack of critical thinking among the trainees, and there is a lack of writing skills, and definitely there is a lack of technical skills. But these days the students are more technically oriented, but the fundamental problem is that the language skills are not very good, and also the critical thinking ability. If these two elements are not fine, and if they are not trained in these two elements, how will they be able to communicate with the masses? And that is the fundamental problem, and that should be addressed. The technological issues will definitely change with the time, and that can be addressed, like Professor Devois Kishore has highlighted the need of training in data journalism. But the fundamental thing is that definitely you need to talk about the data journalism. But if you are not good in critical thinking, how will you analyze the data? And how will you communicate that data if you are not very good in language? So I think, in my observation, these three things, if we take care, then we can address the problem of Indian media education. I think these are the main things. Thank you, Dr. Mukta.
Thank you, Mr. Prabhakar. Thank you for putting your views on the theme today. We appreciate the ideas that you gave us to bridge the gap between academia and media industry. Just a second. Thank you, Mr. Prabhakar. Now, moving towards the end of the session.
Dr. Mukta, if Dr. Desmond has joined, just check it, then he should be invited to complete his lecture.
Absolutely. Dr. Desmond.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry I experienced the African network failure. So basically,
no problem, sir. Could you please turn on your cameras, Dr. Desmond?
So thank you very much. So as I was saying, we have what we call the skewed media research. And that is why many a times, if an African academic wants to send a paper to a journal in India, to America, he has a problem. And because its research methodology is very more simplistic or just descriptive. And the reason is of two folds. Number one, the African continent in terms of education, is still evolving. So the complex statistics, inference statistics can be understood by an average African, unlike in India where you have advanced in mathematics, in calculus and all that. So that is one factor. Number two is because there's no interdisciplinary research. Those in media study are not collaborating with those in management, those in sociology, those in development studies. Because when we collaborate, one, as the veteran and eminent professor spoke, you'll be able to understand the diverse issue of society, not just from the journalistic lens. So is westernization of the media. We think it's when you speak the Queen's English. When you travel around India, for instance, I happen to stay in Rajasthan. I was also in Bangalore, in Hyderabad and Delhi and North Noida. As you travel around, education of the media, but that is not applicable in Nigeria. It's when you speak the Queen's English, you're regarded as a professional journalist. That's problematic. So we need to domesticate, culturalize, and even regionalize the press for us to really appreciate it. And finally is the world is already futuristic. There are areas of research that Africa is still sleeping on. Number one is data journalism. Data journalism enhances credibility and objectivity. Data journalism brings a broad spectrum of view to a news story. In Africa, we do not understand the essence of data. And in connection to that is science journalism or science communication. We actually have next to zero science journalists in Nigeria. Most of our scientists are in the industry or in other disciplines, but how do we bring in medicine, pharmacy, psychology, anthropology, history into journalism, as has been done in India, and that has helped the world to see India as a brand. Africa, there's no African journalism. We have African journalism, but not African journalism. And that issue is peace journalism. The adaptation of Western ideas and concepts and approach to journalism has fueled ethnic, religious, political conflict across the continent. There is a need to understand the peculiarity of the African continent and adopt a new model of peace journalism to dose off the conflicts that is almost consuming a country like Nigeria. Another point is AI journalism. Nigeria is in a wartime. There are many places you can't reach as a journalist. There are many stories that the government wants to gauge, they want to control, they want to censor. But with AI journalism, we can break this barrier. With AI journalism, we can connect. But as it is today, there is no single news outlet in this country that has metamorphosized or journalism school on this continent that have introduced a module that exclusively or intensively understudies how we can adopt AI so that we can look at issues on health, agriculture, weather, and a host of other things. And finally is sustainable journalism. Nobody wants to be a journalist because they feel that there's no money in journalism. Students are running into advertising, public relations, marketing, because even the coinage, the word journalism has become a stigma. And it's because we have paid less attention to the sustainability of media institutions, sustainability of the journalist himself, and find sustainability of the environment. So as we embrace all these things, we will be able to understand clearly the state of the media in Nigeria and broadly in Africa. And I love a program like this that gives us the room to voice out, to speak out on the situation on the African continent. But beyond this engagement, there's a need for collaboration, research, and there's a need to tell the African story through the African voices. And I think with this, and finally, it's a point, Nigeria has more than 20,000 registered journalists. But how many of these journalists have touch with academia? We need to open our doors as universities, institutes, to the practicing journalists. And the practicing journalists need to also open their doors to the academia. With this collaboration, we will dodge the tension of competition, of maligning, and further push the profession forward while fighting and wrestling to rescue the country from poverty, from political mismanagement, and equally join the Committee of Nations. So this is where I'm going to end my discourse by saying Africa as a continent, journalism as a practice, there's still so much to investigate, and we can start the journey through this kind of discourse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond. It was indeed a pleasure to listen to you and your thoughts. Now, moving towards the end of the session, I would again invite our session chair today, Dr. Dilip Kumar, for his concluding remarks. Over to you, Dr. Dilip.
Thank you, Dr. Mukta. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. The entire, as I earlier told you, yes, the entire session will be very much fruitful. Yes, indeed, it's a very much fruitful for the audience. As started from Professor Doval, he emphasizes that journalism is a kind of fraudism. Are just talking about YouTube journalists. or citizen journalist. My point of view is that whether citizen journalism is a right word or not, as Professor K.G. Suresh always emphasized, citizen journalism should not be exist in the media field, because if the citizen journalism is exist, why not citizen doctor, citizen engineer, etc. And yes, Professor Dobhal rightly emphasized the training module or research module, even very much precise and very much constructive regarding the trainee journalist or budding journalist. My viewpoint is that why we are talking about, if you're talking about the journalism, we are not talking about the mass communicator rather than only journalism, because mass communicator is also very much important part in the entire even journey of the creative field. And whenever we will talking about the responsibility and responsible people, definitely we can talking about the entire mass communicator rather than only a journalist. Yes, we have the people, legendary people like Professor Deves Kishore sir. He is not only a stalwart for the media people, but he is the guiding force. He is the generator to our society, media society especially. So, lifetime achievement award for the professor, for the media educator, for the researcher like Professor Deves Kishore sir is a really a great honor for all of us, even great honor for this platform as well. So thank you very much, sir, for even accepting this lifetime achievement award. Even I am very much privileged and honored that even in particular this session I am chairing. I haven't whether I have a ability to chair this entire session when Professor Ambesh Saxena, Professor Deves Kishore is available in this particular form. But yes, it's a effect, or it's the impact of your media inputs from where we started our study in media. So it's a great thing for us. You just talking about the computer assistant based reporting or application and its application. And yes, citizen journalism. We entire media fraternity people having responsibility to develop the module, minimum kind of training package for those people who want to do the journalism. It's a real threat for the Jindama. Now in this light, we all can even feel the credibility of the journalist, the credibility of the entire journalistic practices. And if we will not even awake ourselves in particular this note, definitely we will feel very bad in near future, because if we won't be able to do anything in our field, in our journalistic field, the history will never forgive us. So it's a very much important. And yes, Desmond, Dr. Desmond as a keynote speaker, talking about the political system in democracy, and democracy in real sense, in particular Africa. It's a very much important, but yes, it's a very debatable point of view. Rather than talking and this kind of discourse or debate or discussion or conferences will be very much helpful. But we should start from some initials, and whenever we will start from some initials, it will be take a path in a real form, and when it will be a good sense for doing such kind of practices in any country, definitely it will create a larger impact on particular that. So without explaining much more thing in particular this area, yes, I know Dr. Desmond is a very dynamic kind of activities and very much dynamic personality in his own field. But the initiative should be very much important. Failure in professional journalism, yes, we are very much optimistic people, and failure always gives the sense of success, because at least we have knowledge where we can move and when we can move for success. And whenever we will not move in that way or in that direction, which will be give us failureness, we will not move toward that side. Yes, one more important point, encroachment of citizen journalism and the debate, like it's a very much important. Who is encroaching or he is enforcing the citizen journalist? Whether citizen journalist encroaching us as a trainee journalist, or we are encroaching the citizen journalism. Yes, is the very much important point. And the last, Professor Desmond, Dr. Desmond even emphasized sustainable journalism. Sustainable journalism is very much important. We can take the example of sports. In India, there was only scenario of cricket just 10 to 15 years back. But whenever you will perform in a real sense, the other sports will also take space in media. So if you will do the real kind of practices, yes, threatening environment will be there, some crisis will be there. But if without even taking care of all those things, if one of the warrior, if the one of the fighter will take initiative in that, will definitely it will be work and sustainability will become in the journalism. Yes, and Mr. Prabhakar had CMS Media Lab, news media and other kind of practices he want to emphasize. Definitely it will be very much important. He emphasized critical thinking, writing skill, language skills. Yes, it's very much important. And GNI and Factsala having already such kind of initiative to train the journalists, to train the school-based training, to train the even normal people for the critical thinking, for the fact-checking. These are the practices which will be very much important and which will be very much even a great thing or having great vision. If we will do the practice regarding all those things, it will be work. And when it will be work, this kind of platform, GMEC and GCEC, I think, if I'm not pronouncing it wrongly, it will be a benchmark for the entire media educators or entire media practitioner. Thank you very much for enlightening all those points. I want to speak much more, but time is not allowing us. And but yes, this is the practice. I must say a great thank you to entire team of GMEC, initiated by Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, to Uma Shankar Pandey, my very good friend, my mentor, Professor KG Suresh, and last but not the least, Professor Ambrish Saxena. He is always known for out-of-the-box thinking. So thank you very much, sir. And thank you, Dr. Mukta, for moderating wonderful. And thank you very much for the even listeners virtually who are listening us in this particular note. And we will be hope the entire even 75 kind of episode or event or conferences will be the benchmark for the entire media educators, not only for India. It will be showing path for the world media, global media as well. And definitely we will even waiting for those scenario when with this input, even small inputs, we will be again world media guru, Vishwa media guru. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Dr. Dilip. Now, to end this amazing session today, I would humbly express my gratitude to all the speaker panelists today. I would like to thank our session chair, Dr. Dilip Kumar, our chief guest, Professor Harshpati Dobhal, for sparing your valuable time for us. I'm honored to express my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Devesh Kishore sir for accepting our invitation and gracing our session today. I would like to thank our keynote speaker, Dr. Desmond, for his presence, and humble gratitude to our corporate speaker, Mr. Prabhakar Kumar. Thank you. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Ambrish Saxena for opening the event and helping me out during my crisis. A big thank to all the dignitaries of GMEC, Professor KG Suresh sir, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, Professor Uma Shankar Pandey, for giving me this opportunity. I would like to thank the entire technical team of GMEC. A special thanks to Ms. Manushri for her efforts and prompt reactions. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the GMEC members and participants of today's session. Thank you very much. Please take very good care of yourself.